are you doing? My name is Ryan Kelly and I'm going to be hosting another episode of Know Your Bosses. Know Your Bosses, if you're not aware, is a show where I will review some of the most classic bosses to the lesser known ones. I'll rank them based on their difficulty, creativity, appearance, and fighting style. In the end, the boss will get a ranking from 1, avoid the fight, to 10, pursue the fight. So now that I've quickly gone over the rules, we can talk about the boss we'll be fighting today. Today I'm going to be discussing location. Kraid is located in Brinestar. In order to be able to find him, you'll need to have found this room here, and have gotten the high jump boots by going down the elevator in the room mentioned earlier, finding this missile door here, and following this path here. Once you've gotten the high jump boots, go back to the elevator room and blow up this wall here. Then you'll need to jump up here with your high jump boots. From this point, the path to Kraid is pretty easy to follow. The only thing that might be difficult about this for first time players is the fact that you have to find a hidden tunnel. But this tunnel is in a pretty obvious spot. Just in case you're having trouble finding it, you'll need to blow up this crack right here. Once you do this, then you'll be face to face with Kraid. Boss information. Kraid is one of the more interesting antagonists in the Metroid series. He started as one of the smallest bosses in the first Metroid game, to becoming one of the biggest ones in the series alongside with Flagra and Quadratus in Super Metroid and in Metroid Zero Mission. However, this is not the only thing that's changed about Kraid. He's also had some minor design changes throughout his days. This was his original design in the first Metroid. As you can see, he looks completely different here than he does in Super Metroid and in Zero Mission. Interestingly enough, this is not the only time that Kraid's design has seen some changes. He actually made a few appearances on a not so popular 90s TV show about Nintendo's most famous characters being Captain N. Now I know this isn't canon or anything, but I had to bring this up because Kraid's design in the show is just so bad. Just look at it. I mean, how the hell do you get this from this? But hey, at least he made it in the show, I guess. Speaking of things he's appeared in, he's only been in 3 Metroid games, his most recent appearance being in Metroid Zero Mission, which was released back in 2004. Yeah, that's right, Kraid hasn't made an appearance in a Metroid game in 14 years. Well, I guess that's technically not entirely true. Although Kraid isn't in Metroid Prime, the game briefly mentions him as being a part of Ridley's army, the Mainstays. However, he was supposed to have a bigger role in the story. Originally, he was going to be the main boss of the Phazon Mines, and surprisingly enough, was going to be mechanized like Meta Ridley. And what's really cool about this is the fact that we know more about this so-called Meta Kraid than just his appearance. According to an anonymous former employee at Retro, Meta Kraid was supposed to be defeated by making objects fall on his metallic helmet in order to expose his weakness, being his eyes. He also was supposed to be able to shoot projectiles from his belly that would prevent Samus from being able to make any of the objects above him fall onto his helmet. Just in case you're curious, here's what Meta Kraid was supposed to look like. While we're showing off some early development pictures, here are some of Kraid's concept art. And finally, let's talk about some of the more minor, but still interesting, facts about Kraid. For starters, Kraid's sprites in Super Metroid and Zero Mission don't have tails. As you can see here, both sprites just randomly cut off. This was done 1, to save time and space, and 2, because there's no need to have them because you can't get behind Kraid at any point during either fight. So why would you waste your time making something that no one's supposed to see? Secondly, there's a boss from Super Mario Galaxy 2 that could have been inspired by Kraid, or could have been an homage to him in some capacity. The boss I'm referring to is Squizzard from the Slip Sand Galaxy. Both bosses' weak points are their mouths, they both fire spiky projectiles by flicking their hands, and both bosses' bodies are half submerged in the ground. Now, this could just be a coincidence, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo did this intentionally. Mainly because Nintendo was working on Metroid Other M around the same time as Super Mario Galaxy 2. In fact, both games were released in the same year. So you tell me, do you think this was intentional or not? Strategy. Because we here at Know Your Bosses like to make sure that all of our episodes are thorough, I'll be giving y'all a guide on how to beat both Mini Kraid and the real Kraid. But before I talk about how to properly beat both Kraids, you should make sure that you save at this save room next to the room with a huge crack that leads to Kraid. Also, make sure you have as many missiles and super missiles as you can carry, because you'll need them to make both fights a lot easier. If you are low on missiles and health, then you can fully restore both your missile count and your health at this room here. With that said, let's talk about how to beat Mini Kraid. Mini Kraid is the easiest quote-unquote boss to beat in the game. All you need to do to kill him is to hit him with one super missile. Or, you can just spam him with missiles and or the power beam. Either method works just fine. And yes, I am aware that Mini Kraid has some attacks, but if you're somewhat decent at the game, then you shouldn't need to worry about them because they don't do that much damage. Alright, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about how to beat the real Kraid. Kraid is a two-phased boss that has 1,000 health points. In the first phase, his body will be halfway submerged to the ground. The only attacks that he has in this phase is swatting his claws and shooting fireballs at you. Just keep your back against the door and shoot a super missile and a few regular missiles at his mouth and you'll be fine. The only thing that can be troublesome about this first phase is the fact that he can get really close to you with his claws. All you have to do though is to make sure you jump over them as he's swatting. Other than that, there shouldn't be really that many issues with this first phase. The second phase, however, is a little bit different. In this phase, he will no longer be submerged and will be able to move around more. The first thing you'll need to do is to get to the highest point possible, or whatever level Kraid's head is at. Once you're there, shoot him in the eyes with a regular beam to make him open his mouth. Once his mouth is open, shoot as many projectiles in there as you can. How you'll know if you're damaging him is whether his skin pigment is changing or not. The more damage he takes, the darker he becomes. Keep in mind that it is very easy to get hit in this phase due to all the projectiles on the screen as well as his massive claws. If you fall off the platform onto the spikes, you'll take 16 damage. Which is not good, especially on top of Kraid attacking you. So make sure you're aware of how his projectiles work. Just in case you don't know how they work, I will quickly explain it to you. The first projectile you should note is his platform projectile. I call it this because, come on, look at it. It looks just like a platform. Anyway, this platform projectile will shoot right above the actual platform you're standing on. And you'll shoot it every 5 seconds or so. All you need to do for this projectile is just to jump up and you should avoid it. However, the harder projectile to deal with is his boomerang claw. The boomerang claw will move in a circular motion. But what can make this projectile easier to deal with is the fact that you can blow it up with either your missiles, charge beam, or super missiles. And in turn, you actually get an item from it. So if you can, definitely try to break as many of these boomerang claws as you can. Another very important thing to keep in mind when fighting Kraid is to keep your distance. I can't stress this enough. If you're too close to him, you'll most definitely get swatted off a platform and most likely fall into a spike. Also, something that might help make the fight a little easier is if you strike Kraid's eyes with a charge shot, his claws will temporarily be frozen in place, giving you an opening to get closer to him and spam more missiles into his mouth. If you follow this guide correctly, then you will have successfully defeated Kraid the normal way. Now, if you're speedrunning Super Metroid, or just don't want to deal with the second phase of this fight, then there's a method called KQK, or Kraid Quick Kill, that can kill Kraid before he reaches his second phase. Now, I was unable to pull this glitch off, and have no idea how to properly explain how to perform it. So what I'll do instead, is to show off the KQK on screen right now. This is what it looks like if you perform the glitch right. If you're interested in learning more about this glitch, then I'll provide a link in the description below. Either way, if you're able to do this right, it'll save you a lot of time. But for those people like me who aren't that skilled in Super Metroid, then the strategy that I provided will work just fine.
Rewards.
After beating Kraid, you'll be able to explore the room where you fought him more. In doing so, you should find this door at the end of the room. Once you do, go inside and snag yourself the Varia suit. This suit will reduce any damage you take, protect you from extreme weather conditions, and nullify damage from acid. You will of course need this armor upgrade in order to progress through the game, so make sure that you don't somehow miss this.
Final thoughts.
In this section of the video, I'll be talking about how the gameplay, design, difficulty, fun factor, and creativity weigh on my opinion of whether I think a boss is good or not. Anyway, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's start this section. For starters, the presentation for Kraid's fight is one of the best ones in the game, besides Mother Brain of course. I mean, that's a no-brainer! Guys, I'm sorry, that was a bad pun. I shouldn't have made that joke. One of the main things that I like about Kraid's fight is the fact that you already know how to beat him before the fight begins. Now, how do you know this? Well, the mini Kraid outside the boss's room replicates how the actual Kraid fights almost exactly, except he's a lot easier to handle. Because of this, he can throw every one of his attacks at you all at once because he can't do any real damage to you. This way, you're learning how to avoid and counter Kraid's attacks without having to worry about any dying or having to start over like you would with the actual fight. Now, this is a great way to have the player learn how to fight an upcoming boss without ruining all of the surprises. As I've mentioned several times on Know Your Bosses, making a boss have intuitive gameplay will always benefit the boss because no one wants to have their hand held while playing a video game. However, just because Kraid has an intuitive fight doesn't mean that it's enjoyable. In my opinion, it's one of the more annoying fights. Having to avoid all of Kraid's projectiles while having a pretty limited amount of space to move around in can be a real pain in the ass. A lot of your attacks won't even land because they'll either clip on Kraid's hand or will straight up miss the hitbox. Also, Kraid doesn't have the most creative fight. It's pretty bland compared to some of the other bosses in Super Metroid, like Phantoon, Dragon, and Mother Brain. All the fight is just jumping and shooting. It really doesn't do anything that hasn't been done with some of the previous bosses. Which is unfortunate because I think if this fight had some more clever mechanics, it would have been a really good one. But, like the Smoky Prog and the Water Wraith, the developers focused more on the atmosphere around Kraid's fight rather than the fight itself. However, this doesn't change the fact that Kraid has one of the best designs in the game, right up there with my boy, Ridley. So, with all this in mind, my final score for Kraid is a 6 out of 10. So, what do you think about this boss? Do you think that this boss deserves a higher or lower ranking? Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video or not. Also, make sure to click the like button if you liked the video and hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Ryan Kelly, and I will see you in the next episode of Know Your Bosses.